And I come up off the streets here, first in New York and then here in San Francisco, a long freaking time ago. I was part of putting together the Homeless Coalition, before that the Homeless Task Force. Really since 1983, been trying to organize around the shit. And about 6 years ago, we started the group where we put out these posters and stuff, called the Western Regional Advocacy Project. And the reason for Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, LA, Oakland, Sacramento, Fresno, other groups forming the Western Regional Advocacy Project is because we're all up against the same shit. We're all battling for our right to exist. And that's just fucked up. Like the fact that we have to fight and that we go after Feinstein, that tells you how old I am. Feinstein was the mayor. Feinstein used bulldozers to destroy homeless encampments south of Market Street, which is now all yuppie fucking central and all that shit. But back in the day, it was where a lot of us slept. I was homeless from the time I was 16 till I was like 23, 24. And we slept south of Market, where now it's massive, multi-million-dollar condos. And, you know, the fact that we talk to our brothers and sisters in Skid Row, we talk to the people in Old Town in Portland, we talk to the people in the Central City area of Seattle, we talk to the people in Oakland, we talk to people in Denver, we talk to people in New York. If anybody here has ever been out to New York, the gentrification and the displacement of poor and homeless people from Manhattan exceeds anything you've ever fucking seen. And back in the day, you would go to Brooklyn or you would go to the Bronx. Now you're out in freaking Queens because the gentrification and the displacement of people just keeps growing. And this isn't, in our opinion, just about those that are actually homeless. It's about public housing. It's about Section 8. It's about rural housing. The USDA 515 program is what funds housing for rural communities that are poor. You know, which went from 30,000 units a year to 312 units last year. I mean, we're talking massive, massive displacement of affordable housing funding for poor people, while the mortgage interest deduction program has gone from $40 billion to $158 billion a year. So if you're trying to buy a fucking house, they'll subsidize the shit out of it. And they'll subsidize it to the tune of $148 billion, 148, I think I said 158, $148 billion a year. But if you're trying to get a place to live, because you're freaking broke, it's $34 billion a year. Right? So we end up out in the freaking street. And who gets hit by that the most? Poor people, especially poor people that are disabled, especially when you're talking about gentrification, poor people of color that are disabled. And then you look at our fucking jails. San Francisco's gone down to 6% of our community is African American. 56% of the people in our local jail at 850 Bryant Street are African American. How can 6% of your community be 56% of your jail population unless you're a racist motherfucker? It just can't happen. You have to admit it. You have to get real about it. And you have to get honest about the fact that when the city says they've improved Union Square, they've created such a nice place. When I was homeless, the homeless hotels were on freaking Powell Street. I used to sleep in Union Square. And they removed all those bushes. They removed all that grass specifically because of the fact that we used to sleep there. And now they say, oh, look how beautiful it is. Why? Because the poor people are gone. And you look at this whole plan of closing our parks. You go to Hayward, California. They say they're a magnet for homeless people. I don't know how many of you have ever been homeless, but if you were, did you think, hey, shit, I want to go to Hayward, California? I don't think so. Right? But they want to claim, because first you have to demonize. First you have to dehumanize.
Right.
Then you have to demonize. And then you can criminalize. That's how it goes. So poor people, especially poor people of color that are mentally ill and homeless, they're dangerous. So locking their asses up is no problem. Families that are coming in trying to get a place to sleep for them and their kids, they're expensive. And they're from somewhere else. You know, we're all from somewhere else. And quite frankly, most of the homeless families living in SRO hotels, doubled up, tripled up, that periodically will find themselves in a fucking shelter, actually were born and raised here. The overwhelming majority of them. And they couldn't afford to be here anymore. That's gentrification. That's economic suicide. That's economic cleansing. And that's a community that is clearly saying, we don't want you here anymore.